Chaps, we're return for episode 2 for the Benchwarmers podcast. We began things just over 2 weeks ago, I think it was now, with our first episode where we were quite impressed with how many people that we've had taking on the podcast, downloading, viewing, whatever it was that the guys have done. What are our thoughts on how the first podcast went, and where do we think we've got room for improvement there, Chad?
Well, I'm amazed we've come back.
I mean, it's better than we expected when we discussed this probably a month into the season, whether we should do a podcast, whether we should not. I think, like you say, the second episode is a good yardstick for where the predictions probably lied for outside this group of us and probably inside the group of us as well.
I mean, I'm sure the idea of this podcast came up when we'd all been drinking. And it's one of them things I never actually thought would happen. So I was shocked when the first episode happened. So to be back again on a lovely Thursday evening really does surprise me. So let's see how long it lasts, eh?
Of course. Well, obviously, we touched on some topics on the first episode. I've got Gareth here sporting a fantastic Pontefract Collieries third shirt in what he's going to tell me is
brown
in his maroon. But obviously, non-league football is where we're at. We'll get this episode underway just by having a little bit of a discussion what we've been up to since the last podcast.
Before we press on, Charlie, I just want to firstly apologise to my mum after the first podcast. I think my mum were a little bit embarrassed, to say the least.
That you've released her everlasting love for Mickey Thomas in letter form.
Yeah, I think she perhaps felt a little bit daft that I brought up the fact that she does write to people, or certainly did write to people at that time. So I just want to firstly say sorry to my mum about that.
But at the same time, not sorry because we're going to look for some more Christine letters as we go on.
Well, you say that. However, my mum did inspire me to actually write a letter, and I do need to come clean about a letter that I wrote in the early 90s, football related. It's not non-league, but it's certainly football related. I can either tell you that now, or we can save it for later.
There's no time like the present. Fire away.
Off you go, Nicole.
Over to you.
You set yourself up there.
Yeah, early 90s, a little bit later than Mickey Thomas. Leeds are in Premier League now. And at that time, I don't know if you remember, but certainly a lot of the Monday night football was generally Wimbledon, West Ham, QPR. A lot like it is on Monday Night Football now.
Some lovely locations there.
Yeah, some lower Premier League sides proper battling it out on a Monday night. And I used to love them games, and I think that's probably part of the reason why I like non-league, because they're a bit of kick and rush, lots of mud, lots of thumping tackles, and
some close atmospheres as well in them grounds.
Yeah, definitely old school grounds. And I developed a bit of a soft spot. I always liked Wimbledon because of Vinnie Jones, but I also developed a bit of a soft spot for QPR. And they were struggling a bit, and Ray Wilkins comes in as manager, and they're on the verge of getting relegated. So Ray Wilkins comes in, and he does a bit of a job. He turns them around. They've got some good young players, and I'm keen on Championship manager as it was at that time before it became football manager. They had some good young players coming through: Trevor Sinclair, Kevin Gallen. So I decided to write to Ray Wilkins, so I'm airing this now.
It's a big hoop.
Wow.
Not just to you four, but obviously to everyone who's listening.
The other 8.
As many as there are. So I wrote to Ray Wilkins, and I've not been able to find the letter that Ray Butch Wilkins wrote back to me. But I've got an old photograph of the letter that Ray Wilkins, and just to show how old this was dated on 27th of April 1995.
And you took a photo in 1995?
On parchment.
What do you say on parchment? It's on QPR embossed letter paper. Could you see that?
Well, why did you have
that? Oops. So just to prove how old it is, not only is it dated, but there's no email address on there, but there is a fax number on there, should you wish to contact them by fax. So
and to be fair, most non-league football clubs at the moment probably still just about have a fax machine in them, as times are slowly beginning to change with modern
So he did write to me, did Ray, thanking me for getting in touch. Certainly had a very difficult season for many people. Hoping that can end on a high note. I'm pleased that our form of late has meant that we are not involved in the dogfight at the bottom of the table. And from your point of view, that Leeds go on to qualify for Europe. On their recent form, they thoroughly deserve to do so. Unfortunately, though, it will have to be without Trevor Sinclair and Kevin Gallant. I did request that he sold Trevor Sinclair and Kevin Gallant to Leeds at that point, so unfortunately refused.
He didn't listen to his director of football from afar.
So, signed letter from Ray Butch Wilkins. So there you go. Sorry, Mum, but I have also shared my embarrassment.
And done some letter writing.
I also need to tell you now, this is new, and it's not non-league related, so it's another good start.
A good start to episode 2.
You're going to find this hard to believe, but I also once wrote a letter.
I do find that hard.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I've seen your handwriting.
So did
you get to sit on Jimmy Savile's knee at all?
No, not on this occasion. But what it was in the late 90s, the place where I worked had closed down. So at that time, went on to the rock and roll as you had to do, and I got sent on one of these, training schemes where you had to go and sit in an office and write letters to people and tell them bits and bobs and stuff like that, and apply for jobs, at various local places. At this time, I decided to apply for the Bradford City job.
What league were they in at the time? You're going to tell me they were in Championship Premier League?
They were in the Championship, which was probably just Division 2 at the time, under the stewardship of, I think it was Jeffrey Richmond.
Yeah.
So they had a manager and you applied for the job regardless?
No, I waited until he'd been sacked. I want that bullshit. So, again, I think in the letter I probably told him, about me achievements on Football Manager, because that's probably all I had to work on at the time.
Were you Championship Manager at that point?
Championship Manager. So, anyway, sent it off just to basically keep the job centre staff happy. They can't complain at me if I'm applying for jobs. It's up to them whether they employ me or not. And Jeffrey did write back to me. Unfortunately, telling me that...
It was a rejection.
Well, you've been very assumptuous there, aren't you? Yes, it was. So he wrote back. He wrote a very lovely letter back saying that at this point they were going to go down other avenues. And to be fair, he probably did make the right decision, because they gave the job to another Leeds favourite from the past, Chris Kamara, who actually got promoted to the division above.
So they may or may not have made the right decision.
We'll never know what I could have achieved with that squad. I could have made a move for Kevin and Trevor. Then they might have followed me, you never know. But that's my letter story for tonight.
Well, I'll apologise here that I don't have any letter stories that are related to football, non-league, or any level, I'm afraid. But I may have to get out the magic markers and start writing something.
We'll do that next podcast.
For next podcast, I'll try and get a letter written up to send through. I won't send it to Rousey though.
I have got a couple more bits that we need to address from first podcast.
Fire away.
I got quite a bit of support for the no brown kits that you mentioned.
We don't like brown kits. That's why this one's maroon. That's got
maroon. I had some people mention why we didn't bring on white kits and playing on the non-league pitches.
And by matter of fact, Gareth is also wearing white shorts in what I can only describe as quite chilly conditions.
My comeback to that was maybe something to do with the rise in artificial pitches, which I think may feature in future podcasts.
Yeah, it's certainly something that I think is becoming ever present across non-league football. With
still, though, you have to be very brave to wear white kits in muddy conditions, especially in winter.
The podcast that we did, the first episode, we touched on match postponements. I think artificial pitches will certainly play a part in that, with the amount of games that are getting called off.
Imagine a white kit in the game we had last week against Bryn.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't have been a white kit. It was one of the brown kits we were referring to. I think we've played a couple of sides this year that have been all white kits, Concert and Tadcaster, to name a couple. So it's certainly something that seems to have come back in a little bit more in non-league football. Because I must admit, it had not been a common thing until recent years.
They certainly don't think about the club's kit lady or kit man that has to deal with washing those kits, because they're going to be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, just a little bit soiled on those weeks. We'll not talk about why else they could be soiled for some sides towards the bottom of the league, but we'll not touch on that any further.
You're not going to like the next bit, Charlie, but I've got to pull you up for something to do with match postponements in first pod, and I know Charlie's often out there on a limb arguing against us in our little conversations, isn't it? But it wasn't moles at Grantham that caused the pitch disruption. It was actually chafer grubs.
It's still a mole.
Isn't that what you got? Isn't that what you got wrong with after all your running?
In one or two spots, yeah, not grubs.
on the running topic, you guys are obviously got a big run coming up with some close ties to non-league football with your run supporting the charity of our football club that we support, Pontefract Collieries, with the food hub. You want to touch on the run you've got ahead and how things have been going?
Well, I'm sick to death of it now. I've got to be honest. And I'm sure Nick will agree. It's just mile after mile after mile, and it becomes a bit.
It's completely consuming. All minutes of my day, if I'm not running, I'm thinking about when I'm running, what I'm eating, how tired I am,
and how long it's been since your last beer.
Yeah, not drinking at the minute.
What are we on now for that?
About 96 hours.
96 hours, well done, Nick.
My name's Nick Wayman, and I've been driving for 96 hours. There is one thing, I might upset a few people here, we're good at upsetting people, but I feel a bit like a vegan. There's the saying about how do you know when someone's a vegan? Because they tell you. And I just feel like every conversation I have with people
is about running.
Is about my upcoming marathon. And how much I'm doing or what I've got planned or whatever. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it being over and restoring normal duty and being able to have a drink again.
Of course, and that includes obviously match days where you can have a sherbet or two on the terraces watching games. One of the most
enjoyable things about non-league for me, being able to have a beer at the side of the pitch.
Which perfectly ties us into our first topic of this podcast. Why we love non-league and why we spend pretty much all our lives either talking about it or going to the football. So first up, obviously, for ourselves, some key moments on why we got involved. Obviously, myself, I've been involved probably secondary in our podcast on how many years we've got accrued. I think Gareth takes the lead on...
It's been a few.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to hazard a guess when you first started, or do you know?
I don't have to guess. I don't know the exact date, but I know the year. It was 1987, the year that we turned the floodlights on down at our beloved home ground.
Which, by matter of fact, they're actually off while we're sat in the
yeah, I've seen that a few times.
Office looking out onto a dark pitch.
At the time we played. For the turning on the floodlights, we played a Hull City side. At that time, we're sitting top of Division 2. They brought the full first team down, and they narrowly beat us 3-2 on the night.
And what league were Hull in at that point?
Division 2, Charlie.
That's me not listening. It shows how interested I am in Gareth's stories. I'll let you carry on.
So like I say, I came down in 87. And we just basically got the bug for it. At the time, I was pestering my dad to wanting to go and watch Leeds, but my dad thought that I probably wouldn't have the attention span of staying and watching a full game without getting bored. So he wanted to test me out coming down here.
You got tested in the water.
So I got tested in the waters.
Skin a lane and not beach nut lane, as we'll
there
get into an argument about.
There were no beach nut lane then, I can tell you. And to be honest, after that, we just carried on coming. It feels a lot more personal, I think, non-league football compared to league football. And I think I said it on the first pod, I think you can make a difference, spectators in this league. And I think with some of our club's celebrations towards end of last season and this season, when we've all been in it together sort of thing. And for me, you're not going to get that at, Ellen Road or whatever ground. You might get a player that comes and celebrates near you once, but they're certainly not going to be doing it specifically because they appreciate what you bring.
As far as obviously the camaraderie between the team, the management, the fans, the club itself. I think that the link between all of those is something that obviously most of us notice. The difference between the sides that have those clubs that are community based, that are big behind their town. Obviously, for myself, I've been coming down to Ponty now for, I think, just about 11 or 12 years. I got involved just by chance that my uncle was involved at the club, and I think I started off by helping out in the tea bar. Not particularly too bothered about what happened on the pitch, but as a keen football fan, I was always watching to see what was happening, seeing what the standard of football was like. And I think when I first started, I was fully under the impression that the standard was rubbish. It was park football. I think at that point we only had like 40 odd fans in attendance on a regular basis.
I hope Nick Hadley and Dunk Bray don't listen to this, because that's the end of their followings.
Well, in fact, it was under Brendan Ormsby, another former Leeds legend, that I first got involved
out at this time
when Brendan was there. So again, we've managed to turn back to another Leeds legend there. But I got involved when you'd argue that our football club was probably at the lower end of its success stories. I know that Gareth has probably seen a bit worse than myself, but once you get in, I find that with most people that have ended up getting involved at Pontefract, whether that's people that have gone on to become vice chairman, people that have become volunteers that have been doing it for 4 or 5 years, once you come down and watch a game, it's very rare that you stop coming altogether. You usually find that most people will come from watching Premier League, Championship, professional football, and that will then start coming more frequently to watch their local side or their chosen non-league side, because of like what you said there, the links between the players and the fans and the management, and how close of a connection you can make, whether that's on the pitch, the fans celebrating with the players, whether it's pre-game, walking into the ground, having a chat with people, stopping and speaking to the bloke that's doing raffle tickets, whether it's the people on the gate, even fans that have maybe come down a little bit earlier for a pre-match beer, to obviously afterwards in the clubhouse, all the fans together, both teams in a bar, just having a drink, discussing what's gone on, whether you've been kicking 10 bells of crap out of each other for 90 minutes. I think the access to be able to speak to the players and the managers after, I think that's where you get the added touch that you'd never get in modern day football.
Sorry to interrupt, Charlie. And from my point of view as well, one of the things that stood out to me, especially probably more, even though it's been relevant for probably about 6-7 seasons now, it's probably stood out more the last couple of years, is probably my reconnection with Nick. Because I don't know why he's laughing about that, because it is true. Because we podcast buddies, wanker, fuck him. No, honestly,
that story. I'm not talking about him. We've fallen out. Podcast over.
Yeah. But no, I mean, me and Nick grew up together, and we lived pretty locally. And then there must have been a spell for probably about 10, 15 years at least.
Probably 20 years, I'd say.
Where we didn't really, we just drifted apart. We didn't see each other or anything like that. So one of the few things that has come up recently is obviously getting that friendship back up on the road. Obviously the marathon now that obviously we're tying into. So everything interlinks, and that's one of the good things about that. Or it was one of the good things until he's nasty comment.
But yeah, obviously on the fan side of things as well. Again, the community of the football clubs, but the community that's built within the fan bases. You see, we talked about not too long ago about Ponty only getting tops 50 fans in the gate.
We went to an away game when I was 13.
Well, I
took 25% at crowd in my car.
And again, as far as records go, that's probably up there for an away attendance.
It was a good attendance for Albion Sport, to be fair. I think they were probably quite pleased.
But that community spirit, like we now have a supporters club with 360 odd members in it. You'll see attendances across non-league football are probably up by astronomical numbers over the last 5-10 years. And I wouldn't like to say exactly what the reason is behind that, whether it's stuff like VAR, whether it's the European Super League. but I think people have got better access to watching non-league football, whether that's through the stuff that happens in media, online access, video footage, interviews, whatever it is. I think non-league football's getting the limelight I think it deserves, and quite rightly so.
I feel like professional football's just a bit boring now, because all you see is you'll get about 10 minutes of each game in Premier League football. The centre half just passing between each other, or going in, and then you come down to non-league, you just see him braid it long with hopes and praise, kicking the hell out of each other, and it's just more fun to watch than just watching these two centre halves passing.
I remember, again, veering off non-league. I remember myself, Charlie and Lennon going to watch England under-21s proper football, and my God, we spent
more time talking about what the players were wearing.
Yeah, I found the second half so frustrating when England were trailing, needing
sideways and backwards.
Yeah, and it's like the centre halves passing to each other to pass at fullback to switch it back across. It's blood and thunder down where we are, and that's what people like.
And I don't know whether again we go back to the pitches and artificial turfs. With most non-artificial turfs, you can't do that most weeks. You've got bobbles here, there, and everywhere where you've got to make sure that every pass is either in the right direction or you're not putting your teammate under pressure. So if it means a lump downfield, or it's a bit more direct, or you've got longest throw-ins in football, where we've got Jack Greenough that can throw a ball like a missile. It's different tactics, I think, at non-league, where it's, like you say, it's blood and thunder, it's helter-skelter, it's everything that you can think of as far as the saying goes, that keeps the football interesting, and the quality itself, I think, doesn't quite get enough credit. You look at Jamie Vardy, for example. He's ended up making a career at the top level of Premier League football. For most of his footballing career, it was spent in the lower, I'm going to give you a word of the day, echelons of football, where he's played at Stocksbridge, who we've played at a number of times over recent years. He's played at Halifax Town. Fleetwood were in National League at the point when he played for them. And then he's obviously gone on to have the career he's had. And it shows that even then, when I'd say non-league probably wasn't quite at the standard it is now, he's been able to make that step. And there's countless other footballers that have done. But I think you look at the standard of the National League, the games that you watch on TV now, I think the standard isn't, well, certainly from those that don't watch football, isn't appreciated, I think, across the board.
It's a bit from me. The original question was why we love non-league, and I'd love to say it's about its community and its characters, and that plays a massive part. But for me, some of the things you hear on the sidelines, I know you guys have been coming to watch Ponty a lot longer than what I have, and you like to remind me of that quite regularly. But
that's not us.
But my first experience in non-league football, again going back to early 90s, and again you're going to love this one, it was actually Gould Town where I first went to watch non-league football.
They don't even exist anymore, do they? Gould AFC?
It was Gould Town at the time, and my first experience there, something happened there that's never happened in all the years I've been coming to watch Ponty Calls. My dad won the raffle and he won a tray of meat. And then the next thing that also sticks in mind, I remember nothing about the game. I remember my dad winning the raffle.
What? So he's gone to a
sounds like
game.
Every goal game.
The only thing he remembers is a big tray of meat.
There's another thing. The other thing that I remember, and you hear these sorts of things on the sideline regularly. Gaff's mentioned it already about trying to influence the game. A linesman made a call to say there was an offside or there wasn't an offside. I can't remember what it was. But there were a guy stood in front of me who shouted to the bald linesman, "What's the matter? Did your hair get in your eyes?" And that stuck with me. I remember that. But you hear those sorts of comments all the time. The linesman turned around, he had a laugh with the guy who were behind him, and then carried on with the game. And I just think that it's that sort of involvement, like you say, that you can have that's completely different to being in a crowd of 30,000 people.
100%.
And did your dad write a letter to thank Gould for the meat?
My mum had not influenced him in that way.
But no, you're right. I think a couple of people that have watched the first episode have touched on, obviously, chants that they hear on the terraces. There's a number of those that you probably would never hear in a month of Sundays, likes of Old Trafford, that's full of tourists that are just there taking pictures, whereas you come down to non-league football and you get blokes that are there to watch football and give some abuse to the opposition, even sometimes probably your own side, some cases more than others. We had one this year that was caught on video, and moments later we ended up scoring into the top corner and there was silence, and it's absolutely brilliant to watch. I'm not going to talk any further about that, but obviously some chants that we've been involved in. There's been some this year in particular from our chief songwriter here, Nick. I'm not going to...
Thought Russell's coming.
Controversial, right? There is no chief songwriter.
Are you sure?
But you can't look at me like that. The microphone does not capture you to a look at me right now.
Well, Nick has gained this title without... I say without asking for it. But,
he wants it.
But without not asking for it. So he's claimed that. And there's been some brilliant ones, and I'll admit I've put in some bad ones in there as well. I think that's part of the argument as well, that you can call footballers every name under the sun. You get some that will reply back with, thanks for paying in. Well, unfortunately, pal, we've not paid in. So we've paid in the same amount as you, and we've managed to get in your head inside 5 minutes.
I think my favourite one, though, of all the chants that we've had, and another reason why I love it, was Chester away in FA Cup, singing Tubby Custard to the tune of No Limit.
Highlights the Welsh Library one.
Yeah, I'm going to say, as far as remixes go, Tubby Custard and No Limits is a partnership nobody would ever put together, and nor would they. But I think that experience.
I was disappointed with your two's dancing though. To that, I came up with some wonderful dance moves for that.
Is that what that was?
Yes, that's what that was. It was dancing.
That photo of me stood in front of you at an angle where it looks like you're doing things to me from behind. He was dancing.
Your Honour.
Fair enough. But yeah, obviously non-league football's a massive part of our lives. I've got into it a little bit more than I probably would have ever imagined that I would have done. But like I say, once you're involved, I think it's something that takes over you, and Gareth's just got a mouthful of water that he might also spit out.
I'm very dehydrated.
But yeah, I think, like I say, non-league football, it's something that has been a massive part of my life over the last few years. And probably will be for God knows how many going forward, but it's something that I think all of us have shared a key passion for, and that's why we're doing this podcast. We'll go on to our next topic of this podcast. We'll look at some records that have been broken, that might be broken, and stuff that Gareth hasn't bothered to write down on paper.
If you can hear a noise, that's Nick getting his binder out.
There's no ring binder. It's just a notepad that is well prepared, unlike others. I've got a notepad. Nick's got a notepad. Gareth and Lennon have.
I only got the agenda yesterday.
You can't use that excuse all the time.
Well, the last time I had the agenda 20 minutes before the podcast.
So what you're saying is you've had longer to do it, and you've still not got a notepad. That's all I'm hearing. So me and Nick will fly ahead, and we'll go ahead with some records that
fabulous
that are worth talking about, and I'm sure you guys will think of something on the fly as well. Nick, I'll let you rattle off.
I beg your pardon.
Not with your chain.
So it's not particularly record related, but Worktop were promoted at the weekend.
Oh, brilliant!
Congratulations.
We have got to say congratulations. It's not the team that.
Do we?
Yeah, I think we do have to say congratulations.
To be fair, I think like we posted on our social media channels, as far as the playing squad goes, congratulations to those guys. They've clearly been the best side that have been in our league. And as far as achievements go, to win the league by this point in March is, I don't know as far as records go, but it's probably going to be up there
It's going to be close
in those record
I do
sheets.
feel a bit like an annoyed parent, though. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah. Well, we talked about our reasons why, and obviously the finances that have gone in there. There's different reasons as to, obviously, football clubs up and down the land will spend money and it'll happen. It's happened over the years. It'll continue to happen. But no, as far as their on the field achievements go, it's been a pretty big success as far as their squad's gone. They brought in players from the leagues above. They brought in players from the league that they're in, and they've been head and shoulders the best side this year.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
Sadly. Moving on to some other records that we've got. Obviously, people that follow non-league will be aware of this. Gareth maybe not so, as he's not done his research. But National League, the league title race at the moment is slightly edging towards our team of the podcast a couple of weeks ago in Wrexham's favour. But Wrexham and Notts County, both 1 and 2 in the league, have been since the early weeks of the season. And both sides are currently on track as far as, I'm not going to bring in points per game in non-league football because it's not, it shouldn't be mentioned in the same sentence, but they're on track to break the record points total for a league season.
What is the record?
You've absolutely thrown me under the
I know.
because I don't have that fact, but this is why Nick's here.
Page 2 of the binder.
100, actually page 3.
Is it? Wow.
105 from Crawley. I don't have a date.
We don't have a date, but Crawley, when they got promoted into the Football League, 105, both sides, both on track to break that. And with the way that they've gone this season, both are looking pretty comfortably that they should break that. And on top of that, obviously, both sides have scored countless goals this year. They've obviously spent well on the strikers that they brought in. But I think both sides have spread the goals out. But you've got both their goal scoring tallies are both looking like going to surpass the 100 mark and comfortably and break more records in the most goals scored in a National League season.
So the previous record was 103 by Barnet and Hereford.
It's almost like I knew that Nick had this information and I'll just set him up and he'll just volley it home from a yard out.
And Wrexham and Notts County have both got 97.
How many games are left? Do we know?
Wrexham have got 8 and Notts County have got 7 left to play.
See, this is why
Research.
I've got a notepad and you two are sat asking questions. But yeah, we touched on the goal scorers that have been banging them in for both sides. Paul Mullin, the big money signing in the summer for Wrexham, he's scored 31 goals in 38 competitions. Again, he's not masses of goals away from being far off the current record, which is Ricky Miller's 40 scored for Dover Athletic. Again, I'm not going to try and give you the year that he did that in.
Why is that?
Because I don't know it, quite frankly. I do know it, but I haven't written it down on my notepad, which again is key. But Ricky Miller got 40 in that season. Paul Mullin's only 9 away from that figure with 8 games to go, as Nick said. But then you've got Macaulay Langstaff that joined Notts County in the summer, his first season in the National League, following his signing from Gateshead, where he scored bags of goals for them. Last season, as they got promoted into the National League North, he's currently on 37 in 38 games, which as a stat alone is pretty remarkable. But his first season at this level, the highest he's played in his career, and his first season for him to be 3 away from that total with 7 games to go, it looks like, if not both of them, he'll certainly pass that with his record. So I think as far as goal scoring goes, he's set a high standard.
And it's not really research, but I just want to point on what a signing that Wrexham have pulled off today as well, signing Ben Foster. They were saying that he's like Tottenham have been sniffing around him.
Tottenham Newcastle.
Signed in America,
yeah.
team.
And he's gone to Wrexham.
But to be fair, as far as Wrexham go, it couldn't be a better signing, I don't think. Like in the last, I think it was last weekend, they lost their keeper with a ligament injury.
Is it just my scepticism, let's say?
It is, yes.
That's thinking, is it something to do with the owners of Wrexham also that are going to do some sort of work with his pod?
Oh yeah,
pod that he does as well.
But to be fair though, if you were an owner of a football club and you were looking for a goalkeeper, and there's a goalkeeper that's available that's got Premier League experience, albeit he's retired last season he retired from Watford,
Yeah.
who were a Premier League side at the time. Obviously dropped down into the Championship as they were relegated. But he's got a massive following of his own. He's got his own podcast, which we're not going to plug in this one. But his social media following in terms of sponsorship for Wrexham, his obvious abilities as a goalkeeper. And if they've not got a goalkeeper, it's not a bad replacement, I don't think.
No. And can I just say as well, if Ryan Reynolds needs a new podcast team, we are available.
I think also
At a good price, though. I mean, we've been set. We've put some mild standards on the table. So if he wants to propose an offer, then we'll have a good long think about it. Although it probably won't be that long of a thought. Back onto some records. I know Gareth is a big fan of these records, seeing as though he thought about them for all of 30 seconds. Again, goal scoring. Danny Rowe has just made a transfer today on transfer deadline day. He's moved from
He's gone to York, hasn't he?
Chesterfield to York. What colour kit do they wear, Gareth?
Brown.
They wear brown. He scored 47 goals in one league season. He scored 50 in all competitions for AFC Fylde in the season that they, as a team, broke a National League record of 109. Which is 4 more than Crawley scored in their record-breaking season. I'm hoping Nick might have some more to come back at. Otherwise, I've got some more records to go.
I'm just going to mention, probably not as impressive, and it's not really football related, but the record that Ponty Collieries were involved in. Not that they particularly played a part in it, they were just a team that were there on the day. When Maltby Main broke the record in 2017-18 for the number of dogs at a football match.
And as far as records go, that's probably our one of few. We've not got that many records
Take what you can.
In terms of the pyramid, but most dogs at a fixture is one that will take ground.
Was that the day that the aforementioned club won the Northern Counties East Premier Division?
The Premier Division under the year where we won back-to-back promotions. We was one shy of 3 in a row after losing in a playoff final, but I'm not going to go into further information to bring up sadness. But yeah, a record that the club can claim in no way, shape or form, but we will do just for the record book.
Is that actually a record though? 78 dogs don't seem like a lot to me.
There's a lot in the tiny football game.
But if you think about it,
Can
non-league
you imagine
football.
what the bins smell like at the end of that? It's going to be.
It's Maltby. The way.
And it's only to our listeners that don't like this podcast. I've got a couple more records that we'll fly through. Some that are probably this one that's probably not going to be as favoured by the side that are involved. Durham City AFC. I don't know if you know about this, Gareth, and I'm not going to let you see my sheet of paper. Wearside Football League. I'm going to let you hazard a guess how many goals they've conceded this campaign with 7 games left of the season.
See, I vaguely remember you telling us about this pre-pod.
Exactly.
So not only have I not made any notes, I've not listened. So I'm going to hazard a guess at 137.
It's a brilliant guess. Unfortunately, you've got your 3 and your 7 in the wrong order. They've conceded 173 goals with 7 games remaining, with a minus 164 goal difference. But they have managed to get 1 point this season in a 3-3 draw against Southmore AFC. So you can imagine what the celebrations at Durham City were that evening.
I think Southmore really needs to look at themselves as well, dropping points there.
But you know what? They're not even second bottom. I think they're 3rd or 4th bottom at the minute. So a big point on the day for Durham City. And the last couple in regards to our records, attendance related. So we've got a non-league record, which was from the Midland League at the time when Peterborough United weren't in the Football League, and they recorded an attendance of not 1,000, otherwise that would be a measly record, 13,431 in days where terraces were absolutely packed to the
And how many dogs were there?
As far as our records go, there were a couple of police dogs in the crowd, I imagine.
Right.
There's no actual.
Less than
78 dogs.
And then this season, obviously, it's been mentioned on our socials about some of the attendances in the week since the last podcast. Macclesfield hosted Runcorn Linnets last weekend with an attendance of 4,500, a record for the season for the Northern Premier League West by quite some considerable distance.
Am I right in my assumption that Tom Clare didn't score again?
He wasn't playing.
So he's still not managed to score this year?
I don't know if he scored, actually. I think he has. He were on Love Island after he'd had a run in the game, but Macclesfield won the game 3-2 with a late goal to seal the 3 points in their hunt for the title. And they also had, in attendance this day, they had some dogs. Now, there were police dogs, there were sergeants.
77 dogs.
I'm pretty sure there were some colonels as well that were in attendance to police what was some expected crowd trouble. But as far as
are they going to be in the same division as Worksop next season?
They will. So
that's going to be a battle to look out for.
Indeed. We will move on. We were going to bring up some cock-ups and some howlers, but I'll be quite frank. I think we'll bypass and we'll look at our podcast pet team each episode. Now I know Gareth's going to be a big fan of this one because he's a big fan of this side.
Always.
We'll talk about #United, a side that most people probably won't know about in non-league terms in the northern regions.
And I'm with them.
And Gareth's certainly in their camp. But as far as non-league goes, obviously, modern day children and even some adults that are on YouTube most days, scouting through, #United will be a team that those guys that will be well aware of. They're a side that were formed back in 2016, based in Essex. Now, I'm going to ask you whether you know the chairman's name here, and I'm going to put my hand over my sheet of paper.
No.
His name's Spencer. And originally, the team was... his YouTube channel was based on Spencer FC. And all he had was some YouTube videos. By all means, he was very popular. He had some celebrity teams put together with the likes of Akinfen were featuring and countless others. But they've obviously had a rise through the leagues that have made them slightly more popular than they were back then. They've had back-to-back promotions, albeit one via a curtailed season. But now in the Isthmian League North, and I've done well to say that right because I nearly went in for an Isthmian. National League North, they're currently on a 21 win in a row record, which as far as, again, records go, it's not a bad run of results, and they're pretty much on track to win that league as well. So their rise through the leagues continues. Nick's got a fact that I hadn't got that he surprised me with because I didn't know about this because I did my research last minute.
I'm just getting my teeth in to make sure I say it right. It says that Aspilicueta is a co-owner.
Or as his teammates call him, Dave. So
Is he really?
he's a co-owner since 2018. He started with an investment and now he's become a co-owner.
I'm took back by that. I really am.
You are. And I'm going to bring in some Love Island facts for you now.
Marvellous.
Just because you're a big fan of Tom Clare. The first footballer in Love Island, I say footballer loosely, the non-league footballer, Toby, who featured on Love Island, played for #United at the time they went in. Now, as far as I'm aware, he's not played much for them since. But
didn't one of the Halifax Town players that played against us go in?
He did, but again, how much he was featured was very little, I believe.
Do you know his name, Charlie?
This is bad because I actually know his name's Jamie, but I can't remember his surname. But as far as a footballer goes, he came on as a sub against us here at home when we played Halifax. And he was lightning quick, but he didn't score on that day, and he didn't score on the reverse fixture either. So
and what about Love Island? Did he score there?
No, he did not score in Love Island either. Again, moving on, we'll go on to our next topic in the podcast. And the final one of this particular episode, transfers, with it being transfer deadline day in non-league. So as most non-league fans know, that any point during the season you can make transfers, whether that's loans, free agents, whatever it is, up until what is today's 23rd of March deadline. And there's been quite a busy day. There's been a number of news stories over the last couple of weeks of players that have been linked with clubs. Gareth knows one in particular that was linked with York. Do you want to fire away with that one, seeing as there?
Yes, the former England left back Danny Rose was training with them. Did he actually sign a contract? Or
As far as I'm aware, that contract hasn't been signed.
I suppose that's something though, with him obviously being a free agent, that can be done at any time, I'm guessing.
I don't know if he has to be registered by this point. That's probably something I should have looked at. But we've wasted that particular line.
Did I hear somewhere as well that Akinfenwa were playing somewhere as well, non-league? I thought I heard that kicking about.
I swear he played for United for a game back in Fenway.
I'm sure I heard that he were coming out of retirement to play somewhere. Now again, I haven't done any research. I'm training for a marathon, but but I will find out for next time. But so it's an exciting day.
Indeed. Well, obviously you've touched on the big signing in non-league of Ben Foster. He's joined Wrexham on as a free agent today. There's been a number of other ones, and there's even been some undisclosed fees. Now, me and Gareth have discussed this on a couple of away trips this year, and discussed it over the last year or so about undisclosed fees and our hatred of undisclosed fees. As far as I'm concerned, both in professional football, but particularly non-league football, it's a term that I despise.
Just tell us.
Just tell us how much you've spent.
It's exciting.
Tell us how much you've received. Now, I know Nick's going to tell us there's a reason behind it.
I think there's a reason, particularly non-league related, why there's undisclosed fees. And you might think, is it to do with not letting another team know how much they've paid? I don't think it is. If you look back at some of the big signings that have been from non-league, particularly, I always hark back to the 90s because that's when I was big on me football at professional level. Tony Cascarino transferred from Crockenhill to Gillingham. The transfer fee was disclosed. How much did Tony Cascarino?
I've got a rough idea about this.
I reckon it's a few quid.
I think it might be, and I might be completely wrong. I think did he sign for something like a set of tracksuits and some footballs?
11 tracksuit tops. So you're not going to disclose that one.
It's not the full tracksuit, just the tops.
And it weren't even a full squad. That's just the starters. Yeah. Those that were on the bench didn't even get a gear.
I've got some more if you want to continue.
Please.
Gary Pallister from Billingham to Middlesbrough.
Spectacular move.
It's a big move, isn't it?
How much?
A couple of chicken parmos.
Well, interesting. I can't imagine they were a thing back then, though. It was some kit, some balls, and a goal net. Now,
just one goal.
Just goal.
Not the singular goal net.
It just said goal net, singular.
It's still more expensive than Cascarino, though.
Indeed, yeah. John Barnes, Sudbury Court to Watford. How much?
Where's Sudbury Court?
It's got to be non-league.
It's got to be, yeah.
They're paying for a name change.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Go on, fire away.
It was a football kit that he transferred for.
One football
One
kit?
football kit. And
Like squad or?
Just one player?
Number 7, his shirt.
and this is my favourite one. Ian Wright, when he transferred from Greenwich to Crystal Palace.
Go on, fire away.
No, come on, you've got to have a guess.
I'll be honest, I'm absolutely bossed in for a pee. So I'm going to let you guess.
A set of weights.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not going to question that.
So I think
Ian Wright, in valuation terms, I'd have never have put weights into the equation.
I think that's why there's undisclosed fees, so that they can hide their embarrassment in podcasts in 30 years' time.
That's fair enough. Well, obviously, our dislike for undisclosed fees will continue regardless of those facts. As far as this episode goes, we've covered all our bases.
Bases,
plural. Many bases high.
We covered them with the goal net.
Episode 2, we've got there. We've completed it. We'll not try and transfer this in for an equivalent of some weights. But obviously, episode 2, we'll be thankful to those guys that listened on episode 1. We'll hope that those guys will be tuning in again for episode 2 and hopefully some more along the way. We'll try not to upset too many fans as we go through, but I can't guarantee that'll be the case after the 7 on episode 1.
We've already upset a lot of fans on this one, so...
But 1 on this episode. Not
That's only
bad.
1, though.
That's pretty good going as far as our record goes.
No, just one old man.
But no, thanks to those that listened, and we hope that you enjoy episode 2. And hopefully by the next time we've recorded episode 3, these guys can be back on the beers and their run has been completed and they've raised some good money for charity. So we'll make sure to post the link out there for those interested. But in the meantime, thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.